everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on global peace and tourism. We have our world famous speaker, Professor David Smith, our new friend, Mr. Javier. He is a very creative. He has unique startup. We have our honorable speaker, Dr. Talib Raphael, and Mr. Donald. First, I would like to give chance Professor David Smith.
Okay, thank you so very much. The topic global peace and tourism is one with many nuances and opportunities, really. I particularly like it because just yesterday I booked an international trip that I'm looking forward to and helping me become at peace with saltwater air and sand between my toes. So I'm looking forward to going there. Um, if you look in today's integrated, really independent world, multiple forces represent both opportunities and threats to terrorism. And it's very much that way. You know, the war in Ukraine has really made it difficult to travel to parts of the world. We've seen in the past, COVID made international travel, even domestic travel, very challenging. We see terrorism doing the same thing in the past. But if you look at uh, globalization, and then if you look at the trends of the political, the economic, the social, the technology, the legal and environmental influences, it really changed how we look at tourism and some of the differences. It really kind of depends on your definition of some of the terms and how you look there. You know, because what we're seeing is as we go back and look at global peace and tourism, it really is a complex web of social processes that expand worldwide economics, cultural, political, technology exchanges, and really the connections we're making. And it really is fitting into the different places. I have loved, as I've seen this over my career of traveling over the last decades. And we today see as we travel that many of the countries, most of the countries, has its own national self-interest with all its flaws, its benefits, and there's both in all of them. And we also at the other time see that we have multinational corporations which cross borders. And these multinational corporations really lead us to global economic and political integration. And many benefits can result from this global integration and independence, but we also know there's many negative effects of it as well. And we see that going. But we live in a time of global instant communication. The digitalization and communications revolution has made it such that we think of our global travel in very different ways. You know, we can move today relatively quickly and cheaply. You know, I think back to my ancestors who only way to travel from Europe or Asia was by ship coming to the
Yeah.
United States, and how much time that took. And even going across the continent, you know, I can get on an airplane and be anywhere in my country within 3 hours, and that's just not happened in the past. You know, we're seeing fast trains in many places. We're seeing many different places to move and how we're going to do it. And we're seeing the increasing changes in population and demographics really coming back and hitting us in this area and seeing how the changes are going. There's a lot that I can say going on into that, but Dr. Sharif, I think this might be a good introduction to get us started, and then we'll circle around with some more details the next time. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have our
Thank you.
very creative friends, Mr. Javier. So, what you want to share?
I heard you. Sorry, because I am actually in Spain, and the question of Ukraine is for us really important because the net levels of inflation is terrible. But I think that we live in a Greek moment with artificial intelligence and what is the future with the possibilities with the collaboration for the future. I can believe that world peace cannot be archived with a centralized approach. This is the reality actually with the religions, with the politics, with the system of the previous world. No, humanity is going to the decentralized world. For example, actually, we're working with metaverse, probably. And the question is difficult now because how is the future when the next generation of human is just theta and alpha, and this is a different kind of mind models because actually we still create in socialism, communism, capitalism, etc. And the reality is how is the future of the C generation now and alpha no? And for me the new world is that the past political religion system are going to disappear definitely because it's not a question of how the values of the past humanity are going to go to the future. The question is uh, C gen and alpha gen and a radical generation that are going to go to the centralized. Sorry about my pronunciation. That the centralized world is, for example, the question of origin. All our systems are based in philosophy, like Aristotle, that it was working about the origin of humanity is based on the principle of principle is God. But the question of the peace actually is not possible because we are controlled by the centralized agents in that question, no religion, politics. For, in that context, peace is not possible for me because the world is run amid all misconceptions. For example, number one, the religious beliefs is absolutely that belief that the absolute truth, they control the absolute truth, having a real knowledge of the reality. The history of the religion is mythical and has given man permission for speak about the divine and divided religion invented by man. The most terrible concept of centralized conscious, yes, that's the question, what is the centralized conscious and future conscious, is revelation, and that they are a series of human, of people, are most privileged than others. For example, a politic that main war is best than you, the basically, for example, in Europe and the rest of the world, we live with the democratic system that believe that determinate persons represent our nuestra voluntad, our volunty, no? And this is for me is the big problem for the future of the peace because Putin or the rest of the politics is no my volunteer, you know. This is obviously impossible. An universe that been expanding this expanding for billions and billions of years because we are humans that basically we are tribal. This is for me the best concept or the main concept of the future of humanity because actually we're tribal. For example, we represent different countries. The future of humanity probably is not tribal, no? Tribal. For example, the delegation of human power in political system for me is the big problem because this is me from you always is the conflict. No, you must have to delegate power on the representation, and this representation is outdated. It's like an outdated program that run humanity. You, for example, you work with Excel, you work with your computer. You match in the actual world that you're with a software or hardware that 100 years ago. That is our problem of the mind because we are working with a hardware of 100 years ago, 200 years ago, or two, you know, it's a problem because actually we go to the future and actually we're working with a terrible software. No? It's like a outdated program that the humanity, socialism, communism, capitalism are demagogy of the years ago. Will not represent the future of generation like sit theta, alpha, we manage this possibility done with avatars, probably the future of the near future, actually with metaverse. I know probably for you this is terrible, but the future is just, for example, I'm going to speak about the latest information with GPT-3, it is artificial intelligence generative that is incredible, but probably the model to go with the humanity is basically a new politic with artificial intelligence, avatars, robots, and of course humans. But the question is that humans collaborating with artificial intelligence. For me, the problem is the tribal feeling that this is important. I'm going to speak about that in just a few minutes. Currently, OpenAI GPT-3. I'm sure that you know about that. Is capable to using generative networks to create coherent contents. It's modern, often that it makes empowering and conversational political speeches together with empathic avatars to design the more effective and perfect political plans. For me, it's important this because actually the speech of politicals are based in past. For example, in Europe and Spain, it's always the same words, always the same, no? A world peace with tribal sense is not possible. For me, this is the key word, tribal sense, no? Because actually we're working, and one of my best professor in the Complutense University was Antonio Jauregui, and he had defined the tribal sense as a principle of the problem of human peace, because it's impossible the human peace if you're all time fighting with the net because they are different. No, this is impossible, and this is really important to create a new future. It's no tribal sense, but it's difficult, really, really difficult. No, for example, the tribal feeling, according to Jauregui, is very simple. Everyone to self-identity, and does not allow humanity to progress. In any case, the states are not too interested in advising. China position is intelligent, and we're playing of a kind of risk. You know the game risk, no? It's a game of strategy. It's a game of tribal. It's a game of win place in the world. It's the same. Actually, we're living in the same, and probably they're future in that. But China and US or Europe are working in a collective race and basically in a tribal sentiment, no? And for me, this is stupid because it's impossible. It's impossible to get the peace with that tribal sentiment, no? They have taken thousands of years. The history of people drags the global conscious, no? The history of different countries. For me, I finish now. Sorry. Honestly, it's the question of that feeling cause the wars, cause ourselves. Human sense has to change to the centralized conscious, and it's really, really difficult because it's impossible all time with wars, all time with false concerts. Because actually, we during 25 years working in advertising, I know how manipulate. For example, the measures how create information, etc. And actually, we're living in a global in a disinformation world. And this is the question because, so for me, it's really, really difficult, the human peace. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Talib, can you hear me, Dr. Talib?
Okay, what I want to say here, yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me. Okay. I want to differ very, very drastically with Javier here because Javier is very pessimistic about the future of this world. I'm very optimistic about it. I think tourism has become a tool for achieving that. I must start saying a little bit about myself, and then I'll go into the topic directly. I graduated as an architect from the United States and then from Egypt before that. Now, I came back to Jordan here, and then after that, I worked with government. And step by step, I became Minister of Planning, then Minister of Information. Then they added to my portfolio Minister of Tourism and Antiquity. Now, this addition was a very good example of how lightly people take tourism, because it's just an addition to my portfolio, nothing more. But I fell in love with it. And I invented a concept of going and meeting all heads of state and try to convince them how important it is tourism. Now, tourism employs about 19 to 20% of the world workforce. It also represents about 17 to 18% of GDP of the world. That's we see how much this has been an effect through COVID. Now, why am I talking about tourism here? Because I became the Secretary General of UNWTO, which was based in Madrid, by the way, Javier. Yeah. And it is there that I started to go out and see all the people from there. Now, why is tourism conducive to peace? Because tourism is not a permanent moving of a person to a certain destination. It's temporary moving. And that's something that could work for our advantage, because we don't have many people moving from their countries to other countries. We have people that are visiting these countries. We should encourage that. When I was Secretary General, I went and visited North Korea, I visited Cuba, I visited Iran as well, all the countries that are known for many people around the world. But to me, it was very important to encourage people to go to these countries. It's the only way that these countries can change, actually. Because when you go to a place, you're not expecting them to change for you. You're to change for them. You go to see the people. You go to meet the culture, the people, not the beaches or the mountain. You can find mountains and beaches anywhere you want, but it's the culture that matters. Now, why is this important? It's important because when you go and change your behavior in a certain place, you're teaching yourself something new, Javier. And David, I think you said the right thing there. Now, when you change, you go to people, you meet with people, you interact with people. And that's something that's very important. Because, the all-inclusive models, for example, are very bad models because they isolate the tourists alone and the local community alone. And that's not good for anybody. But when it comes to tourism, when you go out with anybody and from the local community and you have dinner with them, you can never ever have any misconception or negative prototypes or negative feeling toward them. You see them as human beings because they speak about life as if they're part of your life. Now, how does that contribute to peace and understanding? It's a very important concept here, because understanding each other as people would limit all the dangers that Javier was talking about. Javier, the world is a better place. Believe me. The world has never been better. Okay.
What happened? Thanks a lot. You know what happened? That the question is, when you analyze the past of the humanity, it depends of trends of philosophical person and all kinds. It's not a class of our history, but it's how the humanity has the evolution. Always with the philosophy and religions and political systems. The question for me is we have an opportunity to create a future with a different reference, because if we always work in the same reference, the question for me is we are the same result. It is the question for me, and the most important is for me in that moment that it's a passionate future of humanity with the new generation of the centralized conscience of the young people, because we are part of the past. At that feeling is we for example, we was a student, we was educated in the past philosophy of Plato, Aristotle, wherever is the past of humanity. But now the technology are going to probably change the future of humanity because artificial intelligence is not the reference, but the question is how you...
They're changing it. They're changing it for the better. Believe me, they're changing it for the better. Even
Yes,
technology is changing it for the better.
yes,
Because we are living a life that our parents did not live it. Our grandparents did not live it. Our children are living a better life than we did. How's that happening? That's happening because the world is visiting each other. The world is becoming closer. It's technology that brought us closer together. It's
yes,
it's the social media that gets us closer together. We understand each other more by that. But now we have to physically visit. We have to get out of our complexes and go outside and see people with an open mind, with an open heart. Because
yeah, sure.
I visited the world, the whole world. I'm a better person. The more you go out, the more you see people, the more better you become as a human being. And the better human beings that we have, the more human beings that are good, the more there are chances for peace in this world. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Sharif. I want to thank you for choosing this topic because it's a good topic. Thank you.
thanks to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Javier, anything you want to add? Okay. Now I want to give chance, Professor Donald.
We're very lucky to have Dr. Talib. He's probably as great an expert on this as we could possibly have. Well, I think I want to say first off, I sat down with GPT-3, and the first thing I asked it, I blew it up. It's pretty dumb. I have a degree in linguistics, and I've been a visiting scholar in sociology at Stanford. And if you know anything about humans, you can blow it up immediately. It's kind of a joke, really. You can look at what it does, and you can tell that it's GPT-3 right away if you know anything about humans. But it's people with degrees in computer science. It's done by people who are computer scientists, not people who are sociologists, linguists, and psychologists, and things like that. So it's pretty easy to tell that it's algorithmic and not human. But I've been reading a lot recently on the source of our belief in algorithms. It's really interesting. There's a political aspect to it that during the Cold War, we got this belief in rationality and algorithms. A lot of it came out of an organization called the Rand Corporation, and it's complicated, and I won't really get into it right now. But I want to go back to what Dr. Talib said and talk a little bit about my own experience. I have been lucky enough to have traveled to about 23 countries. And the way that I travel is I stay in inexpensive bed in, hostels or inexpensive pensions where I get to know the landlord. I'm just staying in a room in somebody's house, basically. And there's a way that some people travel where they go to things called all-inclusives, where they basically go into little microcosms of the country that they're from. And for instance, they go to Mexico, and the only way that they know they're in Mexico is that they serve bland tacos and bland burritos at the canteen, where they eat at the cafeteria or whatever in the dining area. And then they go out to the beach and they sit on the beach, and they're just completely insulated from the culture that they're in. But I do the opposite. I don't go to places like that. And I've had experiences like I went to the Bahamas and I met a person. They were Americans, but they were living on a boat outside of the harbor because they couldn't afford to stay in the harbor. And they invited me to pay a very nominal rate to live on their boat. And I was pretty poor at the time. And I had to swim out to their boat to get back and forth to the boat. And while I was there, I met this black guy who lived in the shanty town. And he invited me to come to his house and have dinner in the shanty town. And I was the only white person there. And it was probably a very dangerous place to go. But since I was with him, there was another guy that came with me who was also black. And he said to him, he said, "Don's a friend of mine. You understand what that means, don't you?" And apparently he was important enough in the town that meant I was protected. And I got to learn about their culture and, talk to him and sit down with him and his wife and have dinner. And Dr. Talib mentioned that about having dinner. And there's a saying that I really love. The saying is, it's hard to hate close up. And I think that's a really important thing about tourism, that when we go and we're with people, other people, it's hard to hate close up. I mean, there's just people, we find they're people. And how can you hate them? So, one thing the kind of sociology that I study is called relational sociology or network sociology. And one of the things that we've learned is that the more different kind of people that you learn, the more different culture, people that are not connected to each other, people who are disconnected. Like, for instance, there's no one else that I know that is connected to the people in that shanty town in the Bahamas. I'm the only person that knows that has ever been connected to people there. And that's an incredible blessing to me, because going there and I'm not going to make them be like me. I mean, that's impossible. There's no way. It wouldn't do them any good at all. I mean, it would be no benefit to them whatsoever. I mean, their lives are their lives. They have their way of being, and there's no way that I could change them that would be helpful, or maybe a little bit, but a teeniest micro nano bit. But in order for me to go there and sit down and have dinner with them, I have to be I have to adapt and be their friend and be, like, not do things that are, offensive or whatever. I have to be part of it. And because of that, I learn a new way of being that I get to take away from there. I've learned literally a new way of being. And in other situations, that's a resource that I have. I have that ability to have that new way of being as a useful resource for me that I can use to solve problems and be. And what we've learned in this network sociology is that people who do that and have that ability do use it. And people who have those connections into other worlds are more creative. They have better lives. They do better in organizations. They do better. They're healthier. They just have better lives. It's better for people to do that. They're healthier and better off. They're better off psychologically. They're better off in every way. And you can't decide what you're going to run into. You can't know what is going to happen out there in the world, what other people are like. The only way that you can find out is to do it, to put yourself in places where you come out into unexpected. The only way you can have luck is to put yourself in places where luck happens. That's it. Luck isn't magic. Luck isn't something that happens to you by magic. Luck is something that you make for yourself. And the only way to make it is to put yourself in a place where luck happens. And so you as a tourist have the ability to make luck. But it does work in a way that even though I'm not necessarily changing the people, I'm also teaching the people that there's good people, that there's a person like me who can sit down and have dinner with them that's not mean or hurtful. I'm a person that, that there's a connection now between our two worlds. It's a good connection, a kind connection. And every time a connection's like that is made, the worlds are connected. And so tourism like that, if people are tourists and they're open tourists that want to go and accept the world, it makes those links. And I agree that social media is wonderful because, I met this person at a coffee shop in Palo Alto, but I have a friend, Michael, and he's been inviting me to come and stay at his house in Nairobi, and I plan to do it. And, it's just like that. He said he's got a suite downstairs in his house, and I can stay at his house. And he just says, please come. I'll show you around Nairobi. I have a friend that'll take you to the wild animal park.
Please go.
And I will. I absolutely will go. And I was going to go right away, but I got hit by a car and my knee is sore and has to heal. But I'm going to go very soon. And I'm so lucky. I mean, that's just luck. And it's just, why does luck happen? Luck happens because I talk to other people. And that's where luck comes from. Luck is not buying a lottery ticket and hoping that magic happens. Luck is talking to other people and making it happen yourself by being open and talking to other people. And so the tourism for an individual is one of the most beneficial things that you could possibly do. And for the world itself, it's a way of connecting. And the downside for social media is that people have a tendency to only look for things where people are the same as them. And that can be dangerous sometimes because people, they look for things that give them like an adrenaline or a dopamine rush, where they try and search for people that make them feel good. And sometimes they can find people that are mean, and they love other people that are mean like them, and so they tend to gravitate towards other mean people and do mean things and feel mean, and that's something I don't know what we can do about. But I think that most people are not mean, and I think in general it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And Sharif found me because I post a lot on Facebook. That's why I'm here. So that's what social network. That's one thing about social network. That's why I'm here, because of Facebook. That's the truth. So I got to meet all of you guys because of social media. That's the truth. I mean, that's a total example of why this happens and why it works. So that's what I have to say right now. Thank you, and I really enjoy all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Professor David.
Ahmed.
Well, I love what everyone else has said, and Dr. Sharif, I agree with you 1,000% of how tourism has changed and how it has shrunk the world even further. Uh, the graphic which is up is actually the latest numbers on international tourism. And what's interesting to me is we can see that from the COVID era, it's beginning to really bounce back. Uh, the international tourist arrivals, the orange line is today, this year. You can see from the 2019 to the 2021-ish, 22-ish, how much it has changed going forward. And some regions are recovering faster than others. The chart at the bottom right-hand side looks at subregions. And for example, if you look at the Caribbean, if you go over and look at some other parts of it, you can see their year-to-date numbers are pretty good, and that they have been steady. You have some others like Northeast Asia and others where they're not doing very good yet. Still, they're still negative in there. But tourism is changing, and the fact that people can go and visit others in the world, and you learn their customs, you learn their uniqueness about them, and you stay connected. I love Donald's comment. I have friends in Asia. I have friends in Europe. I have friends in the Middle East. I have friends everywhere, and in South America, who say, "Come and stay with us, Donald." I like that concept. Uh, One of my friends in Sao Paulo, Brazil, has been asking me for months to come back and visit Brazil and stay a week or two there. I have a friend in Athens, in Brussels, who said, "Come, I'll make one of my family's houses available to you if you'll come and spend 3 or 4 weeks with us." Boy, that's going to be hard to do. But on the other hand, I love the hospitality that global tourism provides us, and the fact that these are friendships which cross the political bounds. These are friendships that can actually help, I think, drive peace more than we think we can. Um, and if I go back and look at some of the other numbers, it's very interesting. If you go back and look at the United Nations Department of Economics Development, uh, they expect the world population to reach almost 10 billion people by 2050. And this
That's right.
population is increasing, but it's not going to be uniformly distributed around the world. You know, we've got overall parts of the world with slowing birth rates, and death rates are extending out. And we see that in developed countries, there's a growing percentage of people over 65 that will be there. And this is one of the populations where you see more of pure tourism as opposed to business travel. And you're seeing across many populations, fewer and fewer percentage of people involved in the global workforce. And you're seeing that. And how's that going to be? Uh, Globally, if I look, the people under the age of 25 will be declining in almost every region of the world as we look at how the demographics of our generations are going right now. And in the developing countries, half of the global growth between 2020 and 2050 will come from Africa, for example. Nigeria will double its population by 2050. Uh, the India and China, for example, India is projected to surpass China as the world's most populous country in the world. So you're seeing that, and that will be changing the way we look at tourism, and particularly tourism around politics. But you know, the political unrest globally has disrupted tourism. The co- the COVID pandemic and others has disrupted tourism tremendously. If I go back and look at the Global Terrorism Index, uh, which is produced by the Institute of Economics and Peace, shows that fatalities from terrorism have declined tremendously, but some of the terrorist attacks as a percentage have increased. And many of them are for economics, and many of them are actually for political statements. Um, if you go back and look at COVID again and the border closings and how they've opened and some of them are reclosing this restriction, uh, clearly, the pandemic has dramatically changed how we travel, but also it is defining safety of travel in a global setting. And for all the bad of the COVID pandemic, some of the good for tourism has been that it's forced our countries to begin to understand how to work better with each other to promote tourism and have that work. The other element I see here, though, is that um, we've seen these focus on safety result in airplanes that have improved breathing situations. We're seeing changes in the cruise industry. Uh, we've seen that airports have changed, not only security based around terrorism, but how can they become safer places for us, more healthier places? And there, we're beginning to see new ways to optimize it. In the United States, I'm a member of Global Entry, where it used to take me 20 minutes to an hour to get through customs coming back into the United States. With Global Entry, I go to a kiosk, it looks at my face and it prints me out my document to walk through. It takes longer to get my bag off of the carousel than to go through customs, through immigration. And that's very different than it is in the past. Uh, I wish I could take that same thing and travel more internationally. I know my last international trip, it took me almost an hour and a half to get through customs in a foreign country. And I can see that, but that goes with the international tourism and as it moves forward. Uh, there's also, though, an increased awareness of new destinations that the whole digitalization has brought on. We're seeing more and more travel, as Donald talked about in social media. We're seeing it more in travel shows and other forms of communication. And it's really easy to get lost on it. But, in the generation I grew up in, the popular hypothesis was tourism supported by global peace allowed travelers to learn about other cultural, as well as offering the fact of doing international business. Well, if you think back though, if you're going to have a robust international tourist industry, peace is an obvious requirement for tourism. We see in places where there is civil unrest, where there is war, that tourism always suffer. But however, there's a growing body of research on the relationship between tourism, social justice, human security, and both negative and positive on that. And so careful planning and focus has to be put onto it as we look at the United Nations in one of their SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. Tourism is very important in the SDG as promoting uh, how cultures come together and how when cultures come together, it promotes peace and how tourism as a thing can help change the social injustice in the different worlds according to the United Nations. But tourism is also, though, a major influence on how we look at our worldview, and our worldview changes the more we travel internationally. And
That's right.
to me, that's a very important thing. I can tell you, my cultural understanding has increased so much fold. On the various airliners, I have traveled over 10 million miles during my career, which gives me some benefits, but also gives me a lot of pain from realizing I've sat in airline seats for that long. But those miles, that cultural impact has been good. Now, I will say one thing though, a lot of those miles have been business miles. And Dr. Talib, I don't know if you will agree with this statement, but to me, a conference room in Japan, a conference room in India, a conference room in Athens, a
Are
conference
the
room in
same.
Sao Paulo, Brazil, they're all the same. And so you have to, when you travel, get outside the conference rooms.
That's
You
right.
have to travel,
Very
you
true.
have to see the culture, you have to understand the nuances. On some of my trips to Thailand and working with some of the companies there, I loved to go and visit the markets, to get on the little boats and go up the rivers and see what's happening and see it. As much as I could in trips, for example, to Budapest, I love to walk on the main roadways at night and see the customs. In Sao Paulo, Brazil, I always stay in a region there called Police to Wall Street, where I can get out and see things. And the crime rate is managed there because of all the international banks in the area. Those type of things are important to me as I travel. I can tell you that traveling and the relationships I have formed, at least in my mind, have helped promote my view of peace around the world. So, Sharif, as someone who spent a lot of time on airplane seats, I applaud you for having this program today.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Dolan. David.
Uh, it looks like Dr. Sharif is
Frozen.
frozen.
It's
Here.
frozen, yeah. Okay, Sharif. Can we move
Well, we
on?
know who's next. Javier.
Hey,
Javier.
Javier,
I heard you.
can you hear me, Mr.
Yeah, hey.
Javier?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I am. Okay, yeah, yeah, sure. Uh, for me, actually, I am working with avatars, and I am working with the latest technology with artificial intelligence. And the problem is that the new generation probably don't believe. Sorry about my English because in Spain it's terrible.
No,
I was living in London 2 years, but
no
but
problems.
we have a really broad line Latin with that. But the question is that I believe that the new generations are a different generation. They are working, they're playing every day with the games. They're playing, they're playing in a war constantly because the most important is that the war for the new generation is the reality. Constantly they're in a game, and the question it's not the peace, it's the difference between the humans is basically I repeat again that centralized conscious because the question for me is that in that values for example religions Buddha Christ Krishna everywhere or politics social and communities is the same trends for the minds of the people and the people believe that they have to believe in the past. And the question of the new generation is probably collaborating with artificial intelligence. It's possible to create a new system, a new world based in the collaboration with artificial intelligence. I'm going to put an example. DALI is a platform that you can use. DALI 2 is a platform from a business marketplace, is OpenAI, and you create new buildings, for example, for your city in just 10 seconds. That is better than the past of alone of architects that are creating buildings or a lot of or religions or whatever. Everything is possible. For me, the important of the peace of the future and how it's possible the the justice of the humanity in the future is belief how perfectly you say in different moments. It's belief in the own soul, is belief in the human behind, and the human behind is actually connecting with the virtual behind. That this is important because its connection is physical. For me, it's the future of humanity is physical. For example, in just 3 months, Apple, oh sorry, probably it's different to the conversation with you, but in just 3 months, the humanity are going to change because we are actually working with XR, no? XR is the moment that humanity are going to connect with digital information in all moment and artificial intelligence in all moment. And the next step is the how say crude rate, that is the technological director of Google, is the moment that artificial intelligence are going to go better than human thinking. And this is a really big problem for the future on the peace of the future human. Because if the collaboration entre virtual being and human being is not possible in a physical moment, because actually we're going to create different state. Actually, for example, we're in a tribal sense. In a tribal sense, we collaborate. For example, we has always worse. If you think this is if you see the world as a video game or as a game, this is terrible. This is the game one dog. Oh, and you understand, this is a basic world. And probably the question is how the concepts of the humanity are going to say to the same game, probably a same pace. But actually, we're living in a concept of humanity based in world. In the past, everything that we have built, creativity, everything. Heraclito, it was on the main philosophy of the world, Heraclito, you know, and the basis of the humanity and creativity was based in the world. The question is how go to the future of peace. Is necessarily the peace? I don't know, but the question is our past is part of the world, and our creativity, all creativity of human is based of the world. And the question is, I want to go to the peace. But what kind of peace? How is the decentralized peace? How is the collaboration between humans? Sorry about that, because I want to speak about, because for me it's really important. No, it's Heraclito, you know, it's a pre-Socratic philosopher that he always speak about the war, because the question is it's not the human peace, because it's not the question of the war. For example, with Ukraine, this is terrible and absurd war. No, it's why Russia go to Ukraine now is stupid, and all for me, all the humanity actually is stupid. No, because I think that we're in the past. Actually, we have to collaborate with artificial intelligence for a better future, and probably the peace is as well with our own. For example, your city, the person that life in the streets, everything is the peace. It's not just the war, because everything is the peace is for me is really important. How you feel with aesthetic feeling of how you see better, how you feel in peace with yourself, no? And this is really important for me. The peace is not just the war between countries. The peace is the peace with you as well. The peace is how the aesthetic of the humanity is better. The peace is a great moment, and I think it's possible in the next generation collaborating with artificial intelligence. Sorry.
Thank you, Javier.
Sorry about my English, because
No problem.
No,
You want me to speak?
no problem. Dr. Talib.
Okay. First
Thanks
of all,
a lot.
I'd like to
Yes.
invite both Dr. Professor Donald and Professor David to come to Jordan sometime. You can stay at my home. I have 2 extra bedrooms in my home. Add that to
I
your
would
list,
love
please.
to. I was almost going to get to go to Jordan once, but the person that was my going to be my host got very ill, and I didn't get the chance, but
Okay.
I'd love to.
Yeah, you have an open invitation, all of you, Javier and Sharif also. Please.
Really thanks, Sharif, because this is a really interesting meeting with
Yeah.
the Italian Pulling. I love this.
Yeah.
Really.
Okay. Now, I think I'd like to congratulate both Donald and David for being good tourists, because that's the way tourists should be. They should forget about themselves. Tourism in the developing world is not receiving European blonde person with blue eyes that goes there and is treated like God on earth. That's not right. Tourism is about people coming and understanding us, interacting with us. That's the way we can get over some of the problems that we have now. Some of the problems are related to terrorism. Terrorism, as Donald said. Well, terrorism is about the people there rejecting any foreigner. But if a tourist comes and interacts with people, the people would defend him. The people would defend him. And I've seen that happen in many places around the world. So I don't think that that's a problem for us. The problem is what's the attitude that we have towards visiting other people. Now, it's important also to note that what Javier said about the past and about the religion, our culture is what we did in the past. And what we do today is the culture of tomorrow. That's a fact. So we can't forget about our past. But we are moving very quickly away from religion. We're moving very quickly away from nationalism as well, and politics as such. Okay? That's why I'm very optimistic about the future of this world. I'm optimistic because I traveled the whole world also. You traveled 23 countries. So I traveled 120 countries. 120 countries. I was living in Madrid, but I used to travel outside of my country, Madrid. My country, I say now. 300 days a week, a year. So I spent most of my time on aeroplane. That's why I have what I have in terms of health now. I have Parkinson now because of that. But that's not the problem. The problem is that we still are living in a world that is not understanding each other. Peace is very important, Javier. Peace of the world is very important, because without peace, we will never move anything forward. Nowhere. We can't go anywhere without peace. World peace.
But how is possible to get the peace with the tribal sense? Because the tribal sense is basically, for example, I'm going to explain. For example, my father's has a house in a village in Spain. For example, to go to another village, and for example, if you get a girl, the rest of the I actually know, but it's incredible that the rest of the guys of another village go to fight with you. This is incredible.
Yeah.
It's the dual sense. If that is it's a question of possession, it's a question of it's a basic question, but it's present in the humanity.
Yeah.
For example, last party.
It is present because we don't understand each other. It's present because we don't understand each other. We don't visit each other very often. Even in Spain, I lived in Spain. I lived for 10, 12 years in Spain. And I love Spain. I think Spain is a wonderful country. I don't know what village are you from? Which part of Spain are you from?
Actually, living in the capital is Madrid.
In Madrid. Okay.
Yeah. But
Okay.
I know I love Spain and the rest of the Europe as well. I travel
Yeah.
in the rest, and basically the same. It's the sense for the tribal sense for me is terrible because it's lovely and it's terrible because the question is, for example, we want to change the peace at what level? For example, I go to the street now, and a lot of people. Hey, this is important. Just a second, please. I go to the street, and a lot of people now are living in the streets. No, living in the streets, homeless. And I go to the church, and I speak with the person in the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I say, oh, I ask, hey, this is incredible space because a lot of people is living in the street. Why not you bring to the people here? And he told me, no, they don't want to evolutionate. They take drugs. The chart say that, and a big space. Is it a question? The future of the peace is a question of humanity, because if the representative of the people in the chart say that, it's terrible, because it's terrible that a lot of people is living in the street when you are able to put your building for the people, no, it's a human being. But this is terrible for me. It's a big moment in that, because how is possible in that year, probably in the past, we create in the future with that. How is possible that the person that represents church, Chris, everything say that, and the people is still in the winter in the street? Oh, I don't know.
Well, that tells you how much we don't understand of each other's culture, each other's habits. What you talked about are traditions and habits. They're cultures. Religion is a culture also, part of the culture. In our part of the world, religion is part of the culture, like in Europe, like in anywhere else in the world. So this culture has to be modified. It has to change. And it will change. With time, it will, yeah.
I want to say one thing, and I have to go. I have another meeting with a bunch of people, and many of them are in Africa, of all things. So I want to just say there's a science fiction writer, William Gibson, who made a great line, which is, the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And I think the idea of tourism would actually answer some of the questions. If you go to the Scandinavian country, the Nordic countries, I think you'll find that there's virtually no religion there, and Japan as well. There's virtually none. I lived when I lived in Finland, I lived near a church, and on Sunday there would be half a dozen elderly people that would go to the services, and that was it. I mean, there was it's just gone. And they also are very, very peaceful. They're extremely egalitarian. They figured out ways of they don't have people living in the streets. They have a great social safety net. They're incredibly innovative. They were using cell phones years before the United States. They're modern. They're innovative. There's nothing about them that you could say is backwards in any way, and so there's ways. We know how to do it. I mean, humans know how to do this stuff, and that's part of what this connection, what we can learn. And so that's
this
something
is really good. This connection is really good.
Tourism. Yeah, we can do it. We know how. So I just want to say that we know how to do it, and I think that's what's important for us to do. And I loved this conversation. I love you all, and I'm sorry I have to go, but I have another meeting I have to go to. You guys are wonderful. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Sharif.
Okay.
But thanks a lot, because your word, this connection is a real world. The conscious connection.
Bye.
Thank you, Professor Donald. Okay. Can I continue a little bit?
Yeah, Dr. Talib, what's your concluding remarks?
Okay.
Yes.
My concluding remarks have to do a little bit with what David said and Donald touched on, which is COVID-19 and tourism. Now, COVID-19 had its problems, but like the Chinese say, the Chinese have the word opportunity and the word crisis are one word. They're not two words. They're one word. Opportunity and crisis. So there are opportunities that come out of every crisis in this world.
I love this word, that word. Opportunity and crisis. It's great.
At the same word.
I got to copy if you want.
Yes, please do.
Opportunity and crisis is the best.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, COVID had lots of opportunities. One of the best opportunities was that it brought people together. We realized the importance of tourism and travel, because tourism and travel was the most hit industry in this crisis. It had to bounce back now. It's bouncing back very, very healthy, as David said. It is. I have all these statistics that prove that. But still, because tourism is a very resilient industry, people are going to want to travel now. They want to get out of their homes. They want to do that. So it has come back very quickly. But it did benefit us because it did raise the awareness on tourism. Tourism was not something that, as I said, it was an appendix to my portfolio, simply an appendix. But it's important because I fell in love with it, actually, after a while. And I believe in it completely. You have to have passion towards it. And that's something that is important in this context. Now, the second very important thing about COVID is the rise of local and domestic tourism, domestic and regional tourism, which is very important because people are receiving visitors from outside the country, but they don't know their countries very well. They don't know their cultures very well. They were forced to travel within their country during COVID, and that's been a very important shift of tourism towards the future. It's very important, David. Now, the third thing is the issue of electronics and the new technologies. They have become very important as we are all meeting. We couldn't have met without this technology. Couldn't have met without the Zoom and the people that are running this show. Now that's important because people are going to connect to technology no matter what. That's what I wanted to say at this point in time. Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Thank you, Sharif.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks to you. Thanks to you.
Mr. David Smith, what's your concluding words?
Basically, thanks. Sorry.
I can only echo what has been said by others. Tourism is what helps provide glue to hold all of our cultures together. Because once we have awareness, once we have relationships, and relationships is not only the most powerful tool in business, the most powerful tool in politics, it's the most powerful tool in the world to pull things together.
Have friends all over the world.
I agree. In tourism, establishing those relationships, establishing those understandings of each other's cultures, of what makes each of us in each of our countries unique and special, that is what will bring global peace to the world. So, Sharif, thank you for letting me be part of this.
Thank you. Thank you, Donald. Javier.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything you want to add? Javier,
want to add anything? Javier, you're from Spain. Spain is very important in tourism. It's the third country in the world that receives international tourists. You know that. France and then the United States and then it's Spain. It's the third country in the world. So you are very, very dependent on tourism. You understand it very well. As a country.
Mm-hmm. Thank you everyone for joining today's session. Tourism is extremely important because of COVID. There are a lot of things changed, but definitely South Asia. And beside that, tourism also very important. Dr. Talib Rafal is extremely definitely he gonna help emerging economy like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, and to uplifting the nation through tourism. Beside that, I want to give special thanks to Mr. David Smith and Mr. Javeer to joining today's session. I request all to share our content with your government agency, corporation, and academy. Thank you. Bye bye and take care.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Sharif. Bye, Sharif.
Thank you.
Bye, Javier.
Bye.
Adios.